FearScape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time. Who is the Slender Man? Coming to the FearScape Media Network, FSMN's first ever mega October network crossover event, The Slender Man. Featuring 3 of your favorite network podcasts covering the Slender Man and all his slender glory. On October 1st, you'll hear Ghosts in the Attic, Bodies in the Basement, covering the Slender Man stabbing, where 2 12-year-old girls lured their friend into a forest and stabbed her 19 times in an attempt to become proxies of the fictional character, the Slender Man. On October 6th, FearScape Paranormal Podcast will be covering the legend, lore, and creepypasta of the Slender Man. And finally, on October 12th, join the Misters of the Dark as they cover the 2018 horror film Slender Man, just in time for the Halloween season. Go to fearscapemedia.com or wherever you stream your favorite FearScape Media Network podcasts. Happy Halloween!
Thank you for tuning in to FearScape Paranormal Podcast. We are on a journey to understand and to discover the phenomena that seems to exist all around the globe. We invite you to join us on this journey into the unknown.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another lovely episode of FearScape Paranormal Podcast here on the FearScape Media Network. I am your host, Stefan Gearhart, and I am joined, as always, by probably the most intelligent dude I've ever met in my entire life, and also Josh Rutledge is here.
So am I the most intelligent guy, or my name is also Josh, or there's somebody else here?
There's somebody else here. He's talking about me. No, I'm not talking about you, JD. I'm talking about myself. No, I'm talking about you, Josh. I was thinking about it the other day. I don't want your head to get too big, as I know it will. But I was laughing at, you and I both, when we were in high school and college, we were on the struggle bus, not because we were unintelligent, but just because we were bored. But at the time, I don't think either of us realized that. And now you and I are 2 of the most academics of our group of friends from back in the day. And I would say we probably graduated with the lowest GPAs.
Yeah, I remember my high school GPA.
Oh, I remember mine too. I just don't want to share it.
I'll share it. It was 1.978. But I graduated college with a 3.7. So,
So college, I still screwed around, but I was still young, and you went back later on.
That was my third and final attempt at college.
Yeah, I was like, I graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theater, and in my major, I graduated with a 3.9. Yeah, baby. But everything else was awful, and it caused me to graduate with a much lower GPA because I did not want to do gen ed. I was not there for gen ed. I wanted to do my major classes.
You know how much employers care about your GPA?
None. And whenever they ask, I'm always like, why? Why do you care? Like, the only time I ever got turned down was when I tried to be a substitute teacher for the Jefferson County public schools, because I was literally 0.01 underneath what their requirement was for college graduating GPA. And they were desperate for substitute teachers at the time, and they turned me down. I'm like, guys, I was just screwing around. Let me tell you, I have never stopped learning. Like, if I could do it all again, I'd graduate with 4.0. Like, I am now on Adderall. I can get done. I learned I had ADHD, ladies and gentlemen.
So, yeah, I mean, it's like when I was like about 18 months or so being done with college, I decided that I was going to shoot for a 4.0. So like at the time, I think I had like a 3.2 or 3.1. And so I worked those next 18 months to pull it back up to a 3.7. So
nice, man. Congratulations.
But
anyways, now that we're done blowing sunshine up our own asses.
But I would say, you said that this is a lovely episode. I would say this is a sensual episode.
Same. Semantics, my friends. Semantics. Okay, because we're going to be talking about David Huggins. Okay, and the documentary about this man called Love and Saucers. Where did I say it's on Tubi right now? Is that where it's at? You can stream for free.
It's also on Amazon Prime.
It is on Amazon Prime. That's right. So
like, because I went the other day to watch it, and you can rent it for $5 or you can buy it for $8. So I was like, just add it to the collection. So.
Or just go to Tubi. I'm almost certain it's on Tubi TV, which is
but then you got to watch commercials.
Wasn't that bad. Anyway, so Love and Saucers, which is essentially about this man who talks and paints about his abduction and his,
don't give too much away early on.
We'll get into that, but it's called Love and Saucers. So we're going to be talking about that, guys. This is going to be super fun episode. It's going to be fantastic. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, if you haven't become a blanket hugger, join our Patreon. There's a lot of cool stuff, some new wristwatch stuff. We got some cool behind the scenes stuff always getting ready to drop, at a moment's notice. You can go to patreon.com/FearScapePod or FearScapePodcast.com/support. There you can become a monthly member, even as low as $1. We'll send you a sticker. I mean, there's some cool you can still
and I'll tell you right now. So the con coming up, just in a couple of days from when this is going to air, that we're going to do in Louisville. And then later the con that I'm going to be at in West Virginia with the guys in West Virginia, we're going to have we have some Jersey Devil lapel pins. And they are
so cool. I modeled nude for Santosh for that.
I mean, Santosh drew him like one of his French girls.
That's right.
And
one of his Jersey girls.
We've got some Jersey Devil pins, and I have pulled out in reserve 20. I have pulled out in reserve 20 Jersey Devil pins. Everybody who signs up at least the $3 tier for Patreon, I will send you one of these lapel pins, and they're nice. They're like metal lapel pins.
And you're not even going to make them pay shipping and handling.
No, I'm just sign up and I will ship you one of these Jersey Devil pins.
That's awesome. They are legit really cool enamel pins. They are super awesome. I've got one on my backpack. They're awesome. And also, like we said, Josh just mentioned it. We're going to be in Louisville, Mid-America Paracon in Louisville, Kentucky, October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We are going to be there. Lance is going to be there for Misters of the Dark. Our friend Victoria is going to be there. I mean, we are going to be having so much freaking fun, you guys. You can come meet us, grab some stickers, get a Jersey Devil pin, sign up for some stuff. Tell us your encounters from the FearScape. We want to know. I mean, you can tell us right there. We'll record you live, man. Like, whatever you want to do. We're going to be there. There's going to be cool stuff. Cast of the Monster Squad is going to be there. Keith's going to be there. I mean, the only person not going to be there is my baby mama. So she ain't going to be there because she's going to be in Arizona. But I'm going to be there. And it's going to be awesome. Go to midamericaparacon.com. You can get tickets. There's still plenty of tickets available. Day tickets, weekend tickets. It's in the East End of Louisville. It's going to be a lot of freaking fun, you guys. I'm telling you. Also, do not forget that start coming in October, like you heard earlier, coming in October is the Slender Man mega crossover event. Okay. Next week is dropping Ghosts in the Attic, Bodies in the Basement. They're going to be talking about the Slender Man stabbing. And then next week after that, Josh and I are going to be dropping our episode on Slender Man, talking about the legend and lore. The week after that, myself and Lance Wayne, the man with no name, we're going to be talking about this awful Slender Man movie from 2018. It's so bad. We cannot wait to talk about it. So we got a huge crossover event. There's going to be a playlist on YouTube. You can catch them all, or just go to fearscapemedia.com or find us on our socials, because it's going to be a sweet, sweet event, y'all. But anyways, let's get cracking, Josh. You ready to get moving? Because I am.
I'm ready to get moving.
You are so ready.
Ready to rock. I'm ready to rock my hips.
Are you ready to rock? Ooh, you're going to rock your hips? All right. So we are going to start with our first segment of the week, as usual, which is Psychic Word of the Week.
And now, the Psychic Word of the Week.
So, Psychic Word of the Week, as usual, comes from the Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary from June G. Bletzer, PhD. Rest in peace, honey bear. I love you, but I've never known you. I ought to just pre-record that and put that at the front every time.
You should. Just make it part of the intro.
I should. So I turned to page 443. The phrase or word that dropped under my eyeballs said open system. Open system, ladies and gentlemen.
That's software that you can just download and use however you want.
That's what I was thinking too. Or it's like a D&D thing. Anyways, open system. There are two definitions here. The first one says a complex. Oh, it's weird because I wanted to say complex or complex, but I had to read ahead. So a complex of components that maintain an exchange of matter with their environment through import and export, as well as through the building up and breaking down of components, and are still able to attain a constant state. So we're getting into
so it is
alchemy,
so
almost.
It's software you could download and do with what you want.
I mean, kind of, yeah, but it's more than just software, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's components. Number 2 says Seth here, and it says a place where matter exists in three-dimensional form, having its roots in man's mind, which is not conformed to a set pattern.
Open
system.
Open system.
I mean, what is that? So like a mind that is ready to mold, ladies and gentlemen. So it's like a new convert coming to your church.
It's like Clayman from Batman. What is his name?
Clayface. His name is
Clayface.
Basil Carlo is his name.
Yeah.
The first one.
So there you go.
But yeah, open system, guys. Open system. Very interesting. So we ourselves are essentially open source software. So you're welcome.
I mean, yeah. What if we're all just copies of the original?
Well, I mean, essentially that's what a soul is, right? It's like some would say, you know, if there's reincarnation, it's almost as if you're like you get reformatted, your soul gets reformatted. So you kind of do the same thing, but you know, you're still like got new programming on there, you know. Yeah. Then it gets backed up to the cloud. So I don't know. All right, well, let's get moving on, man. I want to get to our next segment. Here's some of you may have even heard this already because it's kind of rocking cool, but here's some spooky news. So spooky news, man. This one's rocking, and I said that on purpose. The headline here says Sammy Hagar says he was abducted by aliens in the 1960s. Sammy Hagar was the, of course, very famous rock and roll guy. Most of you may know him as the second lead singer of Van Halen when they called it Van Hagar. But he is also part of some other bands, and he got his Cabo Wabo tequila and all that stuff. Anyways, this is what he says. This is what the article says here. Says Sammy Hagar swears he was once abducted by aliens, and he details his wild experience in a new interview. Speaking to Mystery Wire, the Red Rocker says his alien experience happened in the mid-1960s. He mentions that when most people ask him about his abduction, they expect him to backpedal, but he staunchly says his experience 100% happened. Hagar says, 4 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, dead asleep. I felt like I was being programmed, like someone's tapping into me, like it was a string from my head to like 13 miles up on a mountain place called Lau Creek. And I know right where it was, these little foothills. There was an object there. There was 2 people in it, 2 creatures in it. and it was 64 or 65. So there was no remote control, no satellites, there were no computers, but I sensed they were tapping into me somehow. He goes on to say they went, "Oh no, he's waking up." Augmented telepathy, they just did the communication when my head is waking up. They yelled out a numerical code, not of our numerical system though, and it went, and I can almost feel the plug, like an electrical charge leaving, zapped into their ship, put a light on in this ship where I see shadows of these creatures, and then all of a sudden, boom, I wake up in my house and in my bed. My room was infinity white. I couldn't move. I was completely paralyzed. My eyes were open, and all of a sudden, bam, it just went black. And it was the time I broke sweat and I was shaking, and I felt like my body was so drained. And well, from that moment on, I believed in UFOs. Now, Hagar added that before that day, he never even looked at the sky and thought of anything except that there was a bunch of stars out there. But this was a very unique experience. The thought of us being the only ones in this giant universe when you know a little bit about astronomy. You know how big the universe is and what a speck of nothing we are. That to think that we're the only ones is pretty screwed up. Those people are crazier than the guys who believe in UFOs. And as for why he thinks aliens may have contacted him, Hagar says, I don't think they were programming me. I think that they were just interested in, what we do with animals, So they had this advanced technology. They were sucking my brain to see what I knew. And by me catching them, enlightened me. I didn't learn anything. They didn't put something in my brain to make me special or anything. I don't believe that at all. I just believe that by having that experience and realizing what happened, my brain went boop. It was like taking acid or something. My mind expanded and I started searching for, the truth and things like that. And well, I still am.
Well, and that's a common theme from contactees and abductees is that when you have that kind of experience, like your thought processes change. Like all of a sudden you're concerned about the earth more than you were before, or you're more into like spirituality than you were before,
or humanity in general, or just absolutely. So this is a very, very cool story. I mean, I'm definitely a big Sammy Hagar fan, and I had never heard that until now. So I mean, I don't know if this is the first time he's shared it publicly or not, but it's a pretty cool story.
Now, of all the early rockers, was Sammy like big time into drugs like some of the others, or was he not as much?
Oh yeah, I mean, he was in a band called Montrose. They do that. What is it? Highway 69. That was one of their songs. I can't remember. But Montrose is a pretty cool band. But yeah, they were. I mean, it was the '60s, dude. I mean, if you're into rock and roll, you were doing acid and stuff.
I know. I just worried if the skeptics will just say, "Oh, he was tripping."
Oh yeah, he probably was, but that doesn't negate the experience. Also, I'm like, was he an open system? I didn't read the article ahead of time. So again, we haven't had a good psychic word of the week mesh up with what we were talking about in a minute, and that one's straight up. What's the same thing? Sammy Hagar basically saying he was an open system and he got reformatted. So, very, very cool.
Yep.
Well, all right, Josh, we've been rushing through because we wanted to share our creepy catch-up about our Somerset trip with Santosh. So let's go ahead and get into some creepy catch-up.
Creepy catch-up. Creepy catch-up. Creepy catch-up. Y'all, it's creepy.
All right, creepy catch-up, man. We had a pretty cool experience. I would say it wasn't as crazy, so to speak, as Point Pleasant was for us.
No.
But we definitely had some good experiences.
Don't think we saw any UFOs.
Yeah, we did at your house before we left for Somerset. Yeah, man. I mean, immediately, like the first night I'm there, we go out to your house and we go, look at the fire, and boom, there's a UFO. Crazy one. Looked like electric bolts, man, just flashing like crazy, like Pikachu bolts, man. And it was moving so freaking fast, dude. And it spun around Jupiter.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. I never seen anything like that, man. Never.
But, I mean, that was we didn't really have anything. I mean, and we went out that night because the weather had changed, and so it was going to be cloudy in Somerset, stuff like that. But so I think it was the only UFO that we ended up seeing that weekend.
It was.
We had some good roddenings happen.
Roddenings. We also had some. We did some Estes sessions, which we haven't done in a while.
Yeah.
And I channeled. That was really interesting as well. Doing a channel session.
Yeah, which I need to find the audio for that. I think I need to look at it and see, because you always get so freaking low when you channel. I don't know.
Yeah, we need to start using that little microphone.
Lapel mic. Yeah,
mic.
We did that for your. We did a hypnosis, right, with Santosh, and
yeah. So that was another thing you guys have heard me talking about for a while now. That we were talking about doing memory recovery hypnosis to see if my experience when I was 3 or 4 or whatever, where I've always assumed that my sister and I got abducted, if indeed that did happen. And it was a really interesting experience. We thought we were going to kind of just go for about 30 minutes. It was almost 2 hours. And it was, it was an experience, man. Like I'm still really processing things. Yeah. There's some frightening things and trust things. I mean, I don't even know if, I'm nervous that what I said isn't the truth. I mean, I do improv. So it's like, was my mind just storytelling? Was I just making connections? I mean, but
I don't know.
I don't know either.
The emotion that was on your face and in your voice as you were telling some of that stuff.
And Santosh had even said that there were a number of answers that came across like a 4-year-old would answer, as opposed to a 42-year-old. So it was very, very interesting. I'm still not ready to release it yet because I'm still kind of processing it, and I didn't think it would feel so private. But if we do release it, we'll more than likely be releasing it on Patreon. And we'll, of course, let you guys know. But there was definitely, some visions of going up. Almost like what Sammy was just talking about. So, going up in a ship, seeing things. I will say one of the things that freaked me out the most was this light beam that we saw that bounced off a chrome ceiling and hit my body and made my skin translucent. So it was like an X-ray light. And so you could see all the organs in my body, and I could see my little kid body, all my insides. And that was pretty freaky, man. I don't, if I made that up, I need to be a sci-fi writer, because that was pretty incredible. So I don't know. So that's just a little tease. But yeah, I'm definitely still processing it and talking to friends and family about things. I don't know.
But something that
messed up.
So something that came out of one of the Estes sessions, I think that's where it was something about a fog and like something rolling in like a fog or something. And it might have even been during your hypnosis. I'm trying to remember where it exactly came up, but anyways, and I after the fact, I'm thinking about, so the night that after you did your hypnosis, we went out and grabbed some food, which, shout out to that diner there in Somerset.
Reno's, man. That's where we went to Reno's.
That was some awesome food, and they like stayed open for us, so that was really cool.
Yeah, it was.
But when we came back, we decided to have a fire and just kind of sit around the fire and just kind of chill and stuff. And we had what's it called from Keith? The
REM pod?
The REM pod out there. I had a little EMF detector like you've seen, like the green, yellow, red, lights that light up. And then I had the divining rods. Is that what they're called? Dowsing rods.
Divining rods or dowsing rods, yeah.
So, and a couple of times we were getting hits on those dowsing rods, and we were also getting hits on the REM pod and hits on the EMF detector. And I couldn't help but notice, but there was like a deep fog that just
a massive deep fog. And it was really interesting because each time we would do an Estes, the clouds would open up above us. like all of a sudden we could see the stars. And as soon as the Estes session was done, the clouds would roll right back in. Yep. And first time in a long time, we've had some Estes sessions, especially yours, Josh, where I was asking questions and you were answering them like quickly too. I mean, really weird circumstances. Even Santosh and I were like, whoa, because you were like answering questions that I was being prodded, anyways, by the things that were coming out of your session. And then I asked questions and you'd be like, yes, it's happening right now. Or I'd say, what's that sound? And you'd be like, you hear that? It was crazy stuff like that. So it was definitely spooky, man. And we kept feeling like there was something there watching us too.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I came out of the, at one point in time, I came out of the cabin and I was walking back towards the fire and I got out of the corner of my eye, I saw this glimpse of this like shadow figure standing about, 15 feet off to the side of the fire pit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a double take and it wasn't there anymore. But, we all kept feeling like there was something there. Something touched you when you sat down into your hypnosis before we actually got started. Something like touched a pillow in the chair that you were sitting in and nobody was around you.
Yeah. And then when you were doing your Estes session, something shook your chair and then it turned out to be me.
Yeah.
That was my Gray Barker moment. Yeah. But yeah, there was also that moment where I was in the restroom and so it's like you sit and then to the left of you on the same wall is the big mirror. And so out of the corner of my eye, I'm seeing like this white figure, like flowy and moving and things like that. And I kind of assume, I'm like, oh, maybe it's the towel that's hanging. But I look over where the towel is. The towel's not moving, man. And I, again, look and I can see this figure out of the corner of my eye in a shape of a human standing in the mirror. I can't see myself because I'm right of the mirror. So, and of course, as soon as I turn to look, there's nothing there. But I was freaked out, dude. And this is the same area. I mean, we were like half a mile away, if that, from where Kyle Cadell from the International Paranormal Museum saw his Bigfoot sighting that he told us about when he was on the show. And we confirmed that with him because we got to go visit him, which was super cool.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, it was, not I would say it was more spiritual or ghosty stuff that happened that weekend than like UFO-y type stuff, but still very cool. I had a good time. My only disappointment was not being able to do the Ouija board with Santosh, because I've never done the Ouija board with Santosh before. I was interested to see what me and two psychics on the board would bring to the table.
Well, we kept being so drained. I mean, I think that was part of it too. And our electrical equipment was being drained. I mean, that's why we actually filmed an Astral Stew, but the external mic that we had completely drained within minutes. And so we had no sound like at all. So we had to completely redo that later on. Which we lucked out that I hooked up the lapel mic for your hypnosis, because it didn't catch any sound for that either. Yeah. So luckily we've got sound for my hypnosis from an alternate source. So,
but I mean, it really is interesting because normally, like when we've gone out in the backyard of my house before, we'll stay up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I'll still wake up at 8, because it's just my body's just like used to getting up. So, 5 hours of sleep, and then even if we go out and do it again the next night, still wake up at 8. But I'm usually not like totally. I mean, that morning after the first night there, so Saturday morning, and I slept till 10 o'clock, which never happens, and then. Within probably 4 or 5 hours after getting up, I was already like, I could have gone home and, gone back and taken a nap. I mean, I was just.
And I was the one that wasn't tired. And I was on Pacific time still. Like, I was still 3 hours behind. I was still staying up till like 4 or 5 in the morning and getting up with you guys at like 8, 9, most times. But I mean, Friday night, you did get level 1 for Reiki. You got a tune for that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is. energetic, especially because for those of you that don't do Reiki, you don't use your own energy, you use Reiki energy, and so it doesn't drain you. But when you're first doing it, like you're still trying to figure out how to differentiate. So and it's like working your mystical muscles, and so no wonder you slept so late on Saturday.
Well, and I'll tell you, I've Reiki'd the hell out of a lot of things, so yep. It's been fun.
Yep. I love Reiki, man. Absolutely love it.
So that's Creepy Catchup. We're already planning next. It's like, what are you going to do next year, Pinky? Try to conquer UFOs.
I don't know. We got some ideas. Somerset. We did get to go to the pyramid though in Somerset, and a couple of pennyroyal places. And like I said, got to see Kyle and go to the museum for a while. And we talked to him for a good long time. And we'll actually be having Nathan and hopefully Kyle too. I'm not sure if Kyle's going to be able to make it, but Nathan on, I believe, in 2 weeks. So that's going to be really, really cool to catch up with them because they're getting ready to premiere Pennyroyal season 2. And I am not a competitive person, so I don't give a shit. Listen to Pennyroyal because it's a really good podcast.
Well, just when we were down there talking to Kyle, he was just season 2 is just crazy. So
I know it's so funny because he was like, I don't know when it's going to happen because there's just so much stuff that we've come across. And literally 2 days later, Nathan drops when season 2 is going to drop.
Yeah. So
it's going to be crazy, man. But yeah, what a fun, crazy. I love we get our annual trips. I wish the weather had worked out a little bit better and time because we didn't get to go into the ghost tunnel, train tunnel like I wanted to, and a couple other things we had planned. But, them's the breaks. So it is what it is. And hopefully this weekend here, hopefully we'll be getting into some spooky stuff with your brother and Lance and Victoria. Yeah. Hopefully the weather's good as well. So maybe we'll have some good creepy catch up, for that as well.
Other than, supposed to be, you're going to freeze your butt off because it's supposed to get on like 58.
Oh, dude, today the high was like 84 and it was 68 this morning. And I was like, I should have grabbed a coat. I was cold because there's no humidity, so it's just cold air. Like, it's crazy, man. But anyways, let's get moving on, man. But thank you guys for just caring about our journey and our just craziness and fun and the things that happen to us. So because October is going to be a cool month, man. We got, like we said, the convention's coming up. We've got Josh, you're coming out to Arizona. We're going to be hooking up with Shane Hurd and Jace McClellan, hopefully. We just got a lot of stuff going on, man. It's gonna be awesome. So we got some great guests down the wire. Like, I'm just super.
Yep. And I'm already lining people up for next year. So it's gonna be a great time.
All right. So that is our creepy catch up, and let's go ahead and take a very quick break. And when we come back, David Huggins, Love and Saucers. Oh yeah.
This episode of FearScape Paranormal Podcast is brought to you by the fine folks at Manscaped.
Autumn is in the air, Josh. The pumpkins are in the patch, and our friends at Manscaped are here to make sure you don't carve your pants pumpkins when you're grooming, if you know what I'm saying, okay? Now, make sure you're keeping things fresh this fall with the leaders in male grooming and their brand new 4th generation performance package. Boys, and by boys, I mean all the boy blanket huggers out there, get ready for a cuffing season like no other. Ready to take the leap into fall with Manscaped? Well, join the 2 million men worldwide using Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code FearScape. That's what I'm talking about, Josh. Getting ready to have your balls smooth as pumpkins.
Smooth as pumpkins.
Smooth as pumpkins.
It's different size pumpkins for different people, right? Different size pumpkins.
And make them smooth because you can do that with Manscaped. For someone who's got sensitive skin and has issues, I'm good to go. The wife is happy. I got a light so I can see what I'm doing because I'm a little fat still, so I still got a belly in the way.
Yep.
So
and you can use it in the shower. I mean, not many shavers that you could do that with.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And I love that it has the weed whacker so that I can say whacker as many times as I want to chop up your worst weeds in your top, in your nose, in your ear. God knows we have gotten 40 and we've got hairs growing in places we didn't know there was supposed to be hair there.
If after you trimmed your pumpkins, you might want to wipe them clean, and their ball wipes are amazing.
Yeah, or the crop preserver. This is that deodorant there to they go hand in hand with pumpkin spice lattes.
Yeah,
so I've heard.
Hand in hand, so they say.
Anyways, don't forget, you guys, we got to get some Manscaped here because we want you to be smooth as pumpkins.
Yeah, so make sure you head on over to manscaped.com. Use promo code FearScape. Get 20% off free shipping. Again, manscaped.com, promo code FearScape.
The SCP multiverse is under constant assault, and destruction can come at any moment. Therefore, having just one database is a folly the Foundation can no longer accept. Join Dr. Kevin Milgram and SCP-073, Kane, as they create an oral history of the SCP Foundation in Memories of Kane, an SCP story, hosted by Daniel Doremus. For should the Foundation fall, the unkillable first murderer of man will live on. New episodes drop every second Wednesday of the month on the FearScape Media Network. Visit fearscapemedia.com for more information.
All right, we are back. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. Make sure to, visit, what we talked about in those ads. We got some good things happening, and everything helps us. Even listening to other podcasts on our network.
Well, I mean, just, they're showing us some love. Show them some love.
That's right.
So.
All
right.
But yeah, so here we are, Josh. We're at the end of September, my friend. It is almost spooky season. And so before we get into spooky season, we need to get that last little bit of summer love.
So, yeah, we're going to kick it off. I mean, we're going to get some David Huggins. All
right, so let's talk about David Huggins and Love and Saucers, man, because this changed my life.
Yeah, so David Huggins, I mean, so first of all, he's currently 78 years old. So he is an older gentleman. He's a painter. He lives in Hoboken, New Jersey. And kind of the way he got famous, and the reason that we're talking about him on our show is that starting at the age of 8, he started seeing beings around the farm that he grew up in Georgia. The first being that he saw was this small, almost like a Sasquatchy type creature that had big orange glowing eyes. And to hear him talk about it in the documentary, he says, I was just out in the field and all of a sudden I hear this voice that says, "David, turn around." And he turns around and there's this little short, hairy guy with glowing eyes standing there walking towards him.
Santosh?
And he's like, I just didn't know what to think, so I turn around and I run away.
That's what I would have done.
So then his next encounter, he's like 8 years old. He goes out to get something out of the barn, and when he goes around the corner, there's this, what he describes as like a praying mantis looking entity standing there. And he says that he just kind of freaked out and yelled. And when he did, this mantis thing sprayed him with this blackish blue liquid substance, which makes me think, honestly, of the documentary about the Hudson Valley and those guys talking about spitting up the blue black stuff the next morning after their encounter. So anyway, so he says as he's running away with this stuff on him, it like starts to evaporate, and then there was really no trace of it. Then like the next couple of days go by, and then these what I will describe as like little grays with blue jumpsuits on.
That kind of sounds like Hopkinsville. Almost.
Yeah. So they start. Well, first of all, he's like walking in this tall grass, and he sees this like little bald head, kind of just below the level of the grass. And he's like, "Is that a bald head?" And then he passes out, and then he wakes up several hours later in another set of weeds. Then he looks up in the sky, and like 7 or 8 of these grays and jumpsuits are falling from the sky, and they hit the ground, and they take off running after him. And he runs to his house, and then runs on the other side of his house, and his house is up on like blocks. And so he gets down and he looks underneath the house, and he can see their feet standing on the other side of the house, and they just turn around and walk away.
God, that would freak me out, dude.
What would have been even freakier if one would have leaned down and looked at him.
Oh yeah, because that's what happens in the scary movies, dude.
Yeah. Anyways, so he goes to bed that night, and while he's laying there in bed, he gets this feeling, and he looks out his window, and standing outside of his window are again these like little 7 or 8 little grays. And then next thing you know, he's like they're inside of his room, and they grab him, take him outside, and there's a craft hovering in the sky, and some sort of a beam or something take them and him up into the craft. When he gets up into the craft, there's the mantis looking thing. There's the grays that he's already been encountering. There's this other guy that he calls a tall thin, and the tall thin looks pretty much like a humanoid, except he has a knob on like the back of his head.
Weird, dude. Because I just want to say how weird that is. Some of the descriptions you just said and what I went through in my hypnosis. I know. I didn't watch this until after all that. So that's kind of weird.
So, and that's what, when I was doing the research for this, I was like, this is going to hit Stefan pretty hard with the hypnosis stuff. And it's probably going to hit you a little bit more, I'm going to say. But so anyways, this woman, what he describes as a woman who he says basically looks like a normal woman, except she's really big, like bigger than most, like tall, like she's really tall.
Like China from WWE.
Pretty much. Yeah. Like, or maybe even a little taller.
Right.
Anyway, she's got this kind of rod in her hand, and she walks over, and the grays, again, he's 8 years old, tilt his head back, and she shoves this rod into his nose and implants something in his nose. Ugh. And then he says, you hurt me. And she says, let me see. And she waves her hand, and the pain is gone.
That's some Jesus level stuff.
Or are they Reiki practitioners?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Santosh has even said it, that there's talk that Jesus was as well during his trips to India and China, that they think he was at during his early years.
So then he wakes up in his bed, and the next day, and everything kind of goes back to normal. Well, so it goes back to normal for several years. Then when he is 17, he's walking through the woods.
And you wonder at this point, before we even get into this, you wonder at this point what his childhood was like up to this point.
Well, so he does talk about that in the documentary, that his parents were both heavy drinkers, and it was an abusive household.
Yeah.
He said it was either like a belt or a thick switch. He's like, when they were drinking, if he was around, it was higher probability that he was going to get hit.
I mean, I don't remember in the doc whether or not he talked about it, but whether or not he told his parents about his experience when he was little, before the 17-year-old stuff.
Yeah. So I I don't recall him talking about it in the doc, but based on how he talks about his relationship with his parents, I doubt he did.
Yeah. And I almost wonder if he repressed some of it until the 17-year-old experience.
Well, so I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So anyways, he's walking along in the woods when he's 17 years old, and he sees this woman sitting underneath a tree. And it's basically the same type of woman that, put a rod in his nose in the craft. And he's like, all of a sudden, I am uncontrollably aroused. He's like, I can't get my pants off fast enough.
This is almost like Anakin and Padme, because he was a little kid at first, right. And then later they meet back up, and he's like, "Well, hello."
Yeah, 8 years haven't gone by. So,
yeah.
Anyways, so he ends up having sex with a female alien, and he said that his orgasm was extremely painful. He's like, it was bigger than any orgasm he'd ever had before in his life. And he was like, he was kind of jokingly, he was like, I always thought I would lose my virginity in like the back of a Ford, or something. Yeah. Like not in the woods with an alien.
An alien, and her name, right?
Yeah, it's Crescent.
Yeah, Crescent. I thought that was kind of cool.
So, so that was the first night. At 19, his parents aren't home. He writes a note saying he had heard about this school, the Arts Students League in New York City. And so when he's 19 years old, he writes his parents a note saying that this is where he's going and he's leaving. They're not home. He says, if they were home, I wouldn't have been able to leave.
Yeah.
He said he heard this voice in his head saying, if you don't get out now, you'll never get out. So he wrote this note, left it for his parents, and drove to New York from Georgia. And again, in the documentary, the way, he's been back to Georgia since, obviously, you go back and visit where he came from. But he doesn't really talk that much about his parents. So I don't know that he's still, now at the age of 78, I doubt they're still alive.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so he goes to New York. When he gets to New York, everything's going well. He's enjoying being in the Art Students League. He's doing all these paintings. He's really, learning all this technique and everything. He loves it. One day after class, he's like, it was like during a transit strike. And so he can't get a bus to get over to where he lives on the other side of Central Park. And so he starts walking. He's like, it's going to be a wet walk. So he starts walking, and he decides to stick his thumb out and see if somebody would give him a ride. So he sticks his thumb out, and this big, dark car pulls up next to him. Where does that remind you?
Come the man in black.
Yeah. And this woman says, where are you headed? And he's like, just on the other side of Central Park. And she's like, well, hop in, I'll give you a ride. So he gets in. She takes him to where he needs to go, within a block or two of where he lives. And he thanks her and goes in his house. That night, he's visited by the woman.
Boom, time for crescent roll.
And
pop that biscuit.
and basically from that night forward, for several months, every single night, she visits, and the mantis figure is always, he says the mantis figure is always there.
He's like the porn director is like what I felt about it. Like, cause he was always there. It was like a director, or a supervisor.
So I kind of, supervisor is a good word. I kind of feel like the woman doesn't have much say in what's happening either. Mm-hmm. Like they're both really trapped in the expectations of the mantis and possibly even the knobhead guy.
Right.
So again, for months, goes on every single night. And he's like, every morning when I wake up, these words in my head say, we'll be back tonight. Every morning when he wakes up, we'll be back tonight. We'll be back tonight. So he wrestles with himself. It's like, is this really happening? Am I losing my mind?
Right.
Is she real? Yes, she's real, so on and so forth. And finally he's walking home from the school one day, and he passes a flower shop, and he sees these flowers in the shop, and he goes in and he picks them up, and he takes them to his apartment, and as he's falling asleep, he says in his mind, "These are for you."
No.
Well, that night he has his encounter. When he wakes up the next morning, the flowers are gone. So then he's like, now I'm going to start treating it like a date. So he cleans up his apartment. He showers before he goes to bed. He does the dishes, the whole kit and caboodle. And he basically explains it like, him and Crescent were boyfriend and girlfriend for, this long period of time. He's like, there were women at the school that he would try to date. He would go on one date and they would always find some reason to not go on a second date.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of continued on like that. Then one night he's going to bed, and he sees this portal open in the wall in his bedroom, and on the other side of the portal is the woman that he's been having relations with, and she says, your baby's dying. And he's like, what are you talking about? What baby? She's like, your baby, it's dying. And he's like, well, then I need to go there. No, you can't. You're not allowed. Well, I don't care. I need to see my baby. He says, like I said it 3 times, I need to see my baby. And so, she lets him into the portal. He's like, and then the mantis guy is really mad. He's like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. And he's like, she said my baby was dying. You can't let my baby die. And so she brings out the baby, and it's just like hanging there lifeless. And he walks over and he reaches out to touch it. And just moments before he touches it, static electricity sparks from his finger to the baby, and the baby opens its eyes. And he's like, look, see, the baby's alive. The baby's alive. So then the mantis guy's like, come with me. He goes into this other room, and there's just babies everywhere. And they're all laying there lifeless. And he's like, whose babies are these? And the mantis points at him and says, they're yours.
Jeez.
So he's like, I felt like I needed to help them. So he walks over and does the static thing for every single one, and they all come to life. And he's like, the best I can figure is that I gave them a little bit of bi energy and they came to life.
Man, that's crazy, man. Not he's crazy, but
no, but just
situation is crazy. Because the one of the biggest reasons why I don't think he's insane is he's constantly questioning his own sanity, which, boom, already, gives you a good inkling that you all right.
So something else that he talks about here is that the Greys are like the workers.
Yeah.
Which I personally find that interesting, because that's a theory that we've talked about, that, in my, dreams or dream state or whatever, that the Greys were created as some sort of a, worker class or whatever. Yeah. So, basically he's basically their stud, right? So, he's just there, and apparently, so there were situations where he was taken into a room and just made to ejaculate into a glass, and then there were all these other women that he was made to sleep with.
I mean, this kind of gets into a little bit of what what's his name, Romanek, talked about.
Yeah,
as crazy as we think he is, I mean, he talks a lot about being a stud And, you know, in fact, for a minute, I thought we were going to have one of his supposed daughters coming on the show.
Yeah.
That reached out to us, you know, because, you know, before he got arrested and stuff, he would be at shows and people would come up to him and be like, I'm one of your kids. I'm almost certain. And I even think they did like DNA tests and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of crazy.
So he basically, every time one of these encounters would happen, they would tell him, forget. And he would always forget. Like they would say forget, he would repeat back forget, and he would forget. In August of 1987, he said it had been a few years since they had come to see him. And in August of 1987, all these memories started flooding in.
Wonder why.
And
I was just saying, I wonder why. Like, what's special about that time?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it was like some sort of the psychic block that they had on him has an expiration date, and it hadn't been around in a while. It just kind of wore off. I don't know. But he said that he went out and read. I'm gonna totally blank on the guy's name. He was a big ufologist. He died.
Stanton Friedman?
No, he wasn't. He was more of a journalist guy. And like when I know the name, you're going to be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you didn't think of the guy's name." It's like Don. Crap.
Don Cheeto?
No, not Don Cheeto. I don't know. I'll have to go look it up and fill it back in later. But so. He reads this guy's book, and there's a section of the book that's called Other Men, Other Women. And it basically, this chapter of this book explains everything that David has gone through and all these memories that are rushing back in. Mm-hmm. So then he starts to meditate and things start to come together even more. And then he has another encounter, but this time it's not a sexual encounter. This time, the mantis being says, let David paint. From that point forward, he starts painting what he remembers. And he's like, every time that I paint what I remember, it gives me comfort. He's like, one time I painted something that was completely false. Never happened. And I destroyed it because they told me they were angry with me, that I can paint them, but I have to be honest. I can't paint anything that's false.
Interesting.
I found an interview, one of the first kind of interviews that was done with David by a guy named Corey Armpriester. I think that's what how it's pronounced. And this was before Vice picked it up and did an article. This is after the Vice article, they created a documentary. So Corey is one of the first people to really kind of quote unquote break David's story. The article was written in 2011. And so it's got some more type question and answer type responses here. Mm-hmm. And so I thought it'll be interesting to go through some of the questions that Corey asked and some of the responses that David gave. So let's see. So what do the ETs think of the human pursuit of art? David's response. That's very interesting. Most of the people that I met, other abductees that are involved with these beings, have a very creative bent to them. I sort of feel like the art and creative aspect is associated with them, the ETs, in some way. Do the ETs produce art as we know it? David's response, I can't say that I've seen it.
Yeah, I think we talked to Santosh about that one time, about, just is it all science and math, or are they artists as well? Yep.
Talking about one of his abduction experiences, he said he felt like he was always in space, but he said he could only go off of that because there was a window where he could see the stars. It makes me wonder, though, if that was a window or was it a painting hanging on a wall to make you feel like you were in space when really you were underground.
This is, again, something that we have talked about.
Yeah.
And we even wondered during my hypnosis of whether or not I was actually in space, or the stars that I saw, was that simply just a recreation of stars to calm me, right?
Well, because think about it. You feel, oftentimes people explain when they go up in the ray to the craft, they feel weightless. I would think if you're falling, you feel weightless. But if you think about if you're in an elevator and it goes up really quick, what do you feel?
Yeah, same. We used to, so Santosh and I used to be a part of this theater company called Specific Gravity Ensemble. And one of the shows that we had done was called Elevator Plays. And we actually did a series of, I don't know, 30 or 40, if that line, maybe it was only 20, I can't remember now, of short 90-second plays that people would get into elevators with us, and we would do these plays. They would see a play going up and a play going down. They would go to another elevator. They would see a play going up, going down. Well, with us rehearsing all the time and us constantly being in elevators nonstop because they're waiting in lines to get on, we would get what we called after ride. So like for like 30 minutes after we would get done rehearsing or doing a show, we would just be sitting there and still feeling that feeling of going up or down in an elevator. And it was like, it sucked sometimes, man, because like you could get motion sickness from it. A lot of us had to take Dramamine and stuff like that. So it's crazy. Yeah.
So just think, when people say, I feel weightless as I'm being suspended. Well, maybe it's because you're falling, not going up.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
The interviewer asked, how are your memories triggered? David responds with, sometimes by another painting. I'll be working on another painting and suddenly I'll remember another incident that occurred. The interviewer asks, in your book, you talk about the hair on the female hybrids as being a wig. What is it about the hair that seems so unusual to you? He says go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I never thought about that, but I've seen these paintings a bazillion times now, and I didn't thought about her having hair, questioning it.
Well, and and I don't want to, no offense to anybody who doesn't have hair. I'm not trying to be offensive in any way, but I wonder if it's a ploy to make you be more attractive attracted to, if you put a wig on.
But she almost, like looking at the paintings of her, she almost seems like a kabuki character from Japan, because it's like, here's this naked human body. It's just tall, like I said, China from WWE, black hair with bangs, but then this white gray alien face that sits and just kind of fades into the Caucasian flesh tone, starting from the neck down. And it's really strange. It almost seems like almost as if she had to wear a mask of a gray, right?
Yeah.
It's just so interesting.
So the hair, he says it's very unkempt. I remember one time one of the females was walking past me and the hair was not on right. She took it off and I was taken aback by that. And so I said, should I shave my head to let her know I was okay with it? So he has to have your parents dealt with your ET experiences? This is directly to the question you asked earlier.
I know. That's why I was like, bring it. Let's go.
So he says, as a kid, I would see one of the beings and I would run to the house and say, hey, Mom and Dad, there is something out there at the barn or something behind the house. And they would say, quit making things up. There's nothing there. One time I did it and it was too much. I got a whooping really, really bad. The next day I went behind the house and there is the woman, Crescent, with a few grays and one insect being. And I remember telling the woman, my mama and daddy don't believe me that I see you, and I got a whipping. As soon as I said that, I knew Crescent didn't like that. She looked at me and said, then don't tell them. After that, I never said a word.
Wow. And that's something we talked about pretty early on in your tenure here was whether or not you should believe your kids when it comes to this stuff, right? And can it cause damage if you do or if you don't?
Yep. So it's interesting. He asks, do you have an absolute trust in these beings? And he said, yes, they have helped me in a lot of ways. It's very interesting.
Well, you know, and I agree with that because, you know, hearing him talk, I mean, it changed his life for the good. He constantly talks about that, you know, how he became a painter. He found this passion and, you know, he wasn't some abused kid anymore. He was worth more than that, you know, even though in a weird way he was abused by these alien creatures as well, if you really think about it. But it's just strange, man. Like, I can't imagine having to process all of that.
Here's a time when they literally saved his life. He says, I nearly drowned. I'm looking at this person while I'm drowning, and I hear this voice say, let him live. And just as they said that, my toe catches hold of a root, and I'm able to pull myself to shore.
Yeah. God, there's a part of me that would feel like I have no control over my life. Right?
Yeah.
Like, because I would just start feeling like they get to decide whether or not I live or die.
They ask about how the ETs are organized. And he says, you know, there are the Greys, then there's Crescent. Then there's a guy very tall and angular, very thin, and he has a hair bun on the back of his head. Mm-hmm. He has red eyes, and he communicates with the insect beings. So does Crescent.
Yeah, he's kind of like a small little Sasquatch. Kind of reminds me of Wendigo from Alpha Flight, Marvel Comics.
That's not the tall guy with the bun on his hair.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the hairy guy.
No, the tall, thin guy.
Sorry,
that I said that's like got the knob on the back of his head.
Right, my bad. I misheard because I was looking at a picture of it.
Okay. So again, in 2011, he asks, "Are you in contact with them today?" And he responds with, "Oh yes."
That was 2011, you said?
That was 2011. He says, when was your last encounter with them? And he said, maybe about a month ago. They ask if you're in your physical body during these encounters or are you out of body? That's a question I had as well.
Yeah.
He says it's combinations of all those. Sometimes they come and just take me. I know I've had a lot of the out of the body experiences. There are times when I'm with them, I feel like I'm in a human body, but a much younger body. Almost like they've transplanted his consciousness, which is something else we've talked about.
Right. Like he's got an open system.
Yeah, exactly. Or like they cloned him so that they could transfer his consciousness to that body on their ship.
Right.
Maybe that's more cost effective than the manpower it takes to secure a human.
Right. Exactly.
They ask, do you feel violated? Do you have a say in what they do to you? He says, it was up to me. The little hairy guy came to my room one time and asked, David, can we use your body? And I said, yes, you can use it as much as you like. He seemed very happy by my response and he left the room.
Not even going to respond.
He said, the person asked, was that before or after the sexual encounters? That was after. I was like, hey, man, why are you asking now? Ask him if he confirms the law of free will. He says, yes, there is free will. He asked if there's a male equivalent to Crescent. He says, I can't say. I've seen a lot of males. I have no idea. There does seem to be a faint memory of other males, but I don't remember too much. They asked why he thinks he was chosen. He says he doesn't know.
Yeah, you know, it's... I think Travis Walton talks about this too, and a lot of these abductees like this is they want to know so badly
Yeah.
Why? And sometimes it's like that movie, The Strangers. I know you don't watch horror movies, but in The Strangers, it's not supernatural. It's not anything. It's these people that just break into this house and just murdered this couple and all this crazy stuff. And at one point, Liv Tyler, who's the actress in there, she asks them, why are you doing this? What did we do to you? How do we know you? And they said, you were home. And and that some of these, that's what they may end up finding out, is just you were there. We were going over a field and we saw you playing, like, who knows? My sister and I were walking in the woods. We just got seen. Right. Yep. It's like, is it always this big thing? No. Can it be? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So a couple of things here about his hybrid children. So they asked, what are they being used for? He doesn't know. Are they both male and female? Yes. What are the alien hybrid children fed? He says, I remember eating some dark chocolate substance. It was like chocolate pudding. There was an odd taste in my mouth the next morning, and after I had a glass of water, it was gone. Are any of your alien children artistic? I like this answer. It says, I don't know. This has never occurred to me. You ask nice questions. I'll try to find out. So like the fact that he's just going to go and ask, hey, are any of my
Yeah, I'm like, do you even still see your kids outside of the spaceship?
Well, they ask if he knows any of his alien hybrid children, and he says, I'm sure on some level I know them all. Then there's a question around the female ET's vagina and how does it feel? And he was like, there's not much warmth, but you got to remember that my senses are subdued when I'm with them. Right. The intense orgasm you would normally feel is toned down. He's sedated to keep from flipping out. So what's really interesting is during the period of time between when they started to kind of leave him alone and when he started to have his memories come back, he got married and had a child. Okay. His son is, at the time in 2011, was 27 years old.
Was he in the documentary? Or did I make that up?
I don't know. I've got
I think so. I think at the very, very end.
As I say, I've got about 20 minutes left.
Yeah, I think they showed like a picture or something of him and saying where he is with everything.
He lives in Thailand, so
yeah.
But they basically ask, has anything come to your son? Has he had any experiences? And he says, basically, if he has, he hasn't shared them with me.
Yeah.
The last question is a really good question and a really good answer. The question is, does it frustrate you not having very many answers to your questions? His response is, I go with the flow.
Good man. It's a good question. It's a good question. I mean, or a good answer.
Is.
I mean, he answers.
I mean, it's
mad,
the end of the day,
they're good answers.
But I mean, what else would if you, it's like trying to have a fight with the wind, right. I mean, you're not gonna inflict any pain other than on yourself.
Right. Absolutely.
So, but yeah, so he, again, current age, he's 78 years old. The documentary that's out was released in 2017. And it was filmed when he was 72. So it's about 6 years old, I guess, from when it was filmed. But I mean, as far as I know, he's still painting.
Yeah.
All of his paintings are available on his gallery online.
The director of the documentary, Brad Abrahams, he still stays in contact with him. We follow him on our Twitter here, and he does a monthly check-in that just says, "Hey, had a monthly check-in with David. Things are good."
Yeah.
You know, like he doesn't really give much information other than that, but yeah, just like, so he's still kicking, and as far as we know, still painting, which is great. I'm like, stupid COVID. I'm like, when's he gonna have an art show in Phoenix? Because I'm already looking like, man, just the prints alone on the Love and Saucers webpage are like $70 for a print, and I'm like, geez, I want to go to an actual show and look at paintings. So that's what I want to see.
I want to go to an actual show and take a picture with my phone and then print that off.
Exactly.
Go to discountcanvas.com and get that for $12. So,
right.
Anyways, not that we would ever encourage art theft, intellectual property theft. Anyways, so that is David's interesting journey. And it sounds like a journey that he's still on.
Yeah. And skeptics are skeptics, man. I've seen a number of articles that start out, insane man believes he had sex with aliens. Like when they're even just talking about the documentary, that's just the headline that reads. And I feel like that's unfair.
The author of this article, like I said, that had the interview, he has a line in here that I think is interesting. It says, I suspect David is suffering from Stockholm syndrome. He has accepted his lifelong enslavement as a sort of gift. He feels protected by these beings and claims they have saved his life on more than one occasion. He is genuinely grateful for their intrusion into his life.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I thought that's what I was feeling the whole time, because it does feel that way, because it was something. I mean, he was forced to do these things.
Yeah.
And it does feel like Stockholm syndrome, because he was abused. At the end of the day, if these things truly, truly happened, and if these were humans doing these things, he would have been massively abused. 17, so in some states that's still statutory rape, right? So it's like,
well, I mean, at the age of 8, he had something shoved in his nose.
Yeah,
right. So it's,
and you wonder if it's because of the abuse he suffered from his parents as well, for him to go, well, this is life. This is what life is supposed to be. At least this one feels good.
Yeah. I mean, well, and think about at 17, your hormones are crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're having sex on the regular. At least you get the feeling that you are, right? So whether or not it's actually happening or not. So, and then you take that and extrapolate it out across his entire lifetime. I mean, he's divorced, like he's no longer, with his wife. And I would imagine that this probably had a big play in a lot of that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he was, even if it wasn't people, if it's, regardless if it's people or aliens, the trauma that he has suffered over his lifetime is really rather cruel.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, as always, like we say, do your own research. See what you find. Check out the Love and Saucers documentary. You can rent it on Amazon. I mean, go to loveandsaucers.com. It'll have all the links to all the streaming places you can rent or find it. I know it's on Tubi. You can also go to Amazon and get the book that just has the paintings. It's called Love in an Alien Purgatory: The Life and Fantastic Art of David Huggins. And it's a book filled with his story and filled with all of a lot of his paintings and stuff. I mean, there's just a number of different ways to kind of look out for this guy.
Yeah, and I mean, it is the documentary is very well put together.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, it's really hard for me I'll say this: it's hard for me to listen to his story and not think about some other things that I know about, and not believe him.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I've been saying probably for about a year and a half now that we needed to check out this documentary and cover it. But I mean, I never really watched anything about it besides just seeing the trailer. And I really thought they were going to handle it much more lighter than they did. I thought it was going to be more like, this guy is definitely nuts. Look how crazy this is. He's a goof nugget. Boop, doop, doop. No, they handled it very well. Really showed what a real person this man is, and it was touching. It was heartfelt. You can't help but sympathize with the guy, and you're kind of like, okay, yeah, I kind of think this happened, because he doesn't sound like a nutcase. He doesn't sound like this. He's just very sure.
Yeah,
his paintings are incredible.
Yep.
I don't know, man. That's where we stand. But yeah, if anybody's got any of his paintings, you can send me one. Just email me. Anyways, Josh, well, let's get moving on, man. Thank you so much for sharing with the audience the life of David Huggins here and his art. Love and Saucers, again, great documentary. Check it out. But we're going to get out of here. Of course, before we do, we got to get into our last segment of the night, which is Encounters from the FearScape. Getting into Encounters from the FearScape, I kept hoping for a UFO one, but I didn't have any tapped in my archive, just to kind of fit the theme. Didn't have anything like that. But we are getting into spooky season, so it kind of is fitting here. But this encounter comes from a listener named Dawn from Tennessee. This story it's interesting. And I think some of us that were kids may have had some similar experiences. So check this out.
My first encounter with a spirit was when I had a sleepover with two school friends. They were sisters. We had a nice evening playing in their yard. We had supper, and then we played some more, and then we went to bed. And we were all three in the same bed. I was in the middle there, and their parents were in their bed too. The bedroom door was open, and the hall light was on. Well, at this point, the girls, the sisters there, proceed to tell me that there is a ghost that comes out of their parents' room when the grandfather clock at the end of the hall strikes 12 and then walks down the hall. Okay? I was a little kid, okay? And so were they. Anyways, we waited. I thought this was just a joke and that they were trying to scare me, because that's what you do when you're kids. And then the clock started chiming. And it chimed on the 12th time. And as soon as that happened, the door to their parents' room just opened. And this big, dark, shadowy figure walked out and walked down the hall. I was absolutely terrified. And these sisters, they just were giggling. Just giggling. I didn't sleep a wink the rest of the night. I was so scared. I went home the next morning before breakfast. And I'll tell you what, I never went back. And I even stopped hanging out with them at school.
It makes me think about my grandfather, was a dairy farmer. Mm-hmm. And he would get up, he'd come in from the last milk of the night around 10 o'clock, eat dinner, and then go to bed shortly after.
Yeah.
But every night at 1 a.m., he would get up and go to the bathroom. And so it just makes you think, was that spirit just kind of residual?
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Getting up and going to the bathroom. Or getting up and getting a snack, or
right. I mean, we don't know anything about the house that they were in. I mean, it could have been a grandfather clock that had been there years, and that was a thing. It would wake him up every time, and he would go to the bathroom, or things like that. Yeah, I don't know, but it does remind me of when I was a kid. Everybody had a friend that had that haunted house, that they lived in, or something. That's definitely spooky. For sure, and that would have scared me, especially if you live in a house where you didn't have those kind of things happen, unlike my house, my house was one of the haunted houses, so it was, it's one of those things. But thank you, Dawn, thank you for sharing that with us for encounters from the FearScape. Remember, you guys can send us your encounters. You can send them to us any way you want to. Send us a file with your voice. We haven't had one of those in a while. We'd love to hear your voice, or hook us up at the paranormal convention this weekend as another way, or just send all those things fearscapepodcast@gmail.com or at fearscapepod at any of our social medias. But Josh, we are going to get out of here. Just want to quickly remind everyone to go to fearscapemedia.com. Check out all the other great podcasts that are there. You can also download the FearScape Media Network app on the Google Play Store for free, ladies and gentlemen, for free. And you can get access to all of our shows as well as all the other great shows, Misters of the Dark and all that stuff. Other great shows. Also, I'm getting ready to start looking to see if anybody's got some new podcasts. If you guys are looking, we'd love to add a few more to our network. So if you got some ideas for a podcast and, or you've got one that, you'd like to see it join our network, hit us up. fearscapepodcast@gmail.com or fearscapemedia@gmail.com. Either one, hit us up. Let us know what you got. Or hit us up at the paranormal convention and we can talk. We would love, and it doesn't all have to be spooky. Like I said, we've got, wishful drinking and binge thinking. I mean, we've got some, unsensitive, some different things out there. So just, anything that we just find interesting, we would love to know. But we are going to get out of here, Josh. Thank you so much. And again, I will say that the plant that sits behind you looks like the ring girl and it keeps freaking me out. We love you guys so much. Take care. This has been Stefan. Keep your eyes on the skies.
This has been Josh. The truth is now.
And remember, folks, hold those blankets extra tight. Things tend to get spooky when you're listening to FearScape. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
We hope you have enjoyed this guidepost on the road of high strangeness with us. And we thank you, as always, for listening and joining our caravan to the weird and unknown. Please consider supporting us as we continue our journey to find the answers we all seek. FearScapePodcast.com/support.